So what I've got here is I've got a page that's lit by a single light source, typical chiaroscuro condition, and this light source is candlelight. So a lot of the people that take my class seem to have an issue with trying to figure out exactly what to do with a lighting condition like this, and it's really not as difficult as some people make it out to seem. And what I'm starting out with here are my raw flats. This is just what I get from my flatter. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lay in some local color or some true color, which is the color of the elements of the page that are or what they would be under normal lighting conditions. So yeah, I'm putting her in a red dress. Yeah, so I've got this page and it's single light source, pretty typical. And this is what's great about this is it gives you an opportunity to do something really dramatic. And with candlelight, that's pretty much what it is. It's a very dramatic light source. So I usually have fun with candlelight. Yeah, so what I'm just laying in some very normal colors here. I'll have now these colors aren't going to stay. This will all be adjusted all together. But I want to start out with something that's tonally closer to what I'm looking for. And with a single light source like this, what I'm looking for is an adherence to values. So I want the values to fall in line with what they would be under normal lighting conditions. And these are just really quick guesstimations of the values that I'm looking for in these elements. There we go. Alright, so more or less these are the local colors that I would be using if I were going to paint this in with some kind of regular lighting condition. But I'm not. This is going to be lit by these candles. There's 3 candles. They're the only light source in the room. And I've pulled up some reference photos, and this is an instance of candlelight. This is a candlelight dinner. Yes, much like what's going on in the scene that I'm painting. But this isn't really what I'm looking for, because this is a scene with multiple light sources. We've got the candlelight here, and the candlelight's pretty much at eye level, so you got your basic hot spots on the female. We see them on the forehead, the tip of the nose here, cheeks, cheeks a little bit, chin a little bit, but yeah, the candles are lighting this room in the front and the back, in the foreground and background, and that's really, that background lighting is what's giving you the ability to see other colors in here instead of just like reds and oranges. You're seeing like the pink of her dress, and there's a little bit of green on the plate or napkin or whatever that is. You can see the stripes in his shirt with some color in there. That's not what I'm looking for. So I'm going to close that out. Here too, you see there's the candlelight, and yeah, it's casting a nice warm light on everything, and there are a lot of yellows, a lot of reds, but there's still too much color. Like, you can still see that green back there, and you can see the gray in his shirt. And that's not really what I'm looking for either. And again, it's because there are other light sources in play here. You've got this lamp light, you've got this sconce here, this light on the wall, and then you've got the candlelight in front of him. And yeah, the candlelight's closest to his face, so that's the main light source, and that's what you see first, lighting him. but you're really competing with other stuff, and it's just creating all this ambient light that we don't really need. Now here are a couple of things here that we that I think better indicate exactly what my lighting condition is going to be. There's a lot more reds in here, and singular light source is the candle, and that's what's causing all the lighting in this image, in these images. So that's going to be my base, that kind of condition. Um, well, then why'd you flat it with local color? Well, like I said, I want to keep the values going, but I want to overcast everything in that red. So I'm going to pick a warm red. Well, we got 20, 90, 76 HSB sliders. Right, so I'm just going to use my gradient tool, radial gradient, normal. I'm going to start out normal. I'm going to go back and forth between normal and overlay and maybe a little multiply depending. But I'm going to start out on normal. And yeah, it does disrupt some of the values, but tonally speaking, I want to get the red on there, and it'll disrupt all the values in the same way. So I should still have the value variation that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to lay a little bit of that red down and go back, and just going back and forth between overlay and normal, and I actually kind of like that. Yeah, that's what it looks like without the line art, and you see there's reds and oranges in there, and I like that. So I may only be able to get through maybe a panel or two. So what I'll do is I'll go to this middle panel because design-wise it's dead center and there should be a good amount of attention there. And it looks like she's saying something important just by the way she's got her hands going and the way she's kind of leaning forward a little bit. So let's start with that panel first. Alright, so I'm going to use this color that's already down here as a mid-tone color. And I'm going to lay in some other colors that could be maybe a little warmer, but are going to bleed out of those shadows. So I'm going to set my gradient tool to normal at 100%. I'm just going to pull some color in, just a little bit of that maroon type color. Right. Now the light's coming from, it's about eye level, but the cast is coming up, the shadows cast up from the light source. So we're going to light everything kind of at eye level, but also kind of from underneath. Now with the techniques I usually like to lay in some color with a hard paintbrush, just a normal, this is a default paintbrush, but I've saved it under my presets just so that I can grab it real quick, and the hardness is set at the hardness is at 100, diameter is 200, and it's just a regular round paintbrush, and you can't see a whole lot of difference right now because this is more like a lighter mid-tone. I'm starting with my mid-tone, which is that skin color, and I'm adding another mid-tone that's just a little lighter than what's already there. You can see it more dramatically on the face, which is good because that's what you want. You want all the drama to go to the face. She's got dialogue, obviously. Her mouth is a bit open, and like I said, she's leaning in. She's looking very serious about whatever's going on. I'm just going to try to hit all the surfaces on the underside with a little bit of color. I don't want to go too crazy right now because it's still early in the rendering game, so to speak. Right now I just pretty much want to get the planes of the face more than anything. Planes of the face, the contours of the body. These are the things that are more important right now. All right, so I can come back in. I kind of work between my shadows and my midtones, or shadows and highlights, or whatever you want to do it. I'm just going to jump in with some darker color real quickly, just to get some things a little clearer. Now, I'm not going to do anything really dramatic yet. I mean, it'll be dramatic because it's this chiaroscuro condition, like I said, but how do you know when to jump in with lights or shadows or whatever it is? And it depends on what you want to do with the rendering. When you're rendering anything, whether it's the human form or particularly a face or in whatever object, you want to be able to delineate the planes of that object. Because that's what's going to give it credibility, believability to your audience, to the reader, to the viewer. Right, and the edges don't have to be that hard. I'll soften out the edges with a softer brush. Some of the edges I like to be hard. That little bit right there, where you're casting the shadow from one finger to the other, I like that to be a little firmer on the edge than some of these other shadows. Gives it a little more weight. And because it's a female face, I want to be very careful about how much information I put in as far as lights and shadows. I don't want anything overworked. I don't want it to be too hard. You want it to be soft. Female face should be very soft. And again, I like to drop in. Now these are going to be some tighter highlights. So I'm going to keep these a little more sparse. And I'll soften these out too. First I want to get them down. So I'm just trying to build these up so that it looks as natural as possible, following the contours of the fingers, the face, all the, just the body in general, all the body parts. I don't want too much there on the shoulder because the shoulder's turning up. It should actually probably be lower. I'll have to blend that out. Now in comics, remember, all the acting happens in the character's face and hands. So I like to cheat a little bit and pull up a little extra highlights towards the face, extra bright highlights than what it would be depending on the light source. So I'll pull them up a little bit, and shouldn't look too out of sorts. Once I smooth out everything else. Now this isn't a book where I'm trying to go crazy, colorful, with lots of specular bright highlights and all that stuff. This is something where I was kind of directed to take a more mellow approach, a little bit more subdued. And I'm doing that, but you know, this scene is candlelight, and so we're running into a very monochromatic palette here. And I'm not going to go any brighter than that highlight. Just got a bit of a cut right there. And pull that there. Now I got to keep the values right on the on all of these things. Just want to make sure everything's discernible in terms of value. A little bit of color on the lips. Right on the turn of the plane of the lips. That's where you get that color. A little color on the hair, just on the tips that turn down towards the face here. And then on her dress. And that's pretty much how I'll do the rest of the page. Right, just pulling in shadows and highlights. Weird speckling thing going on here. So let's try this here. All right, and I'll do the same kinds of things. I'll grab some colors that I think would work in the shadows and some colors that I think will work in the highlights. And it's pretty much the basic same method here. Gradient tool to bring in from the shadow side, and it's really just kind of a shorthand for myself to remember, like a note. I'll come in and I'll start picking some of this out. I could even leave it like that if that was the style I was going for. But it's not really. So. And the thing about these underlighting conditions is I don't have to beat it to death. I can get away with putting a lot or just a little. And a lot of times less is more. It'll get the point across to the reader, and you don't have to overwork it to the point where it could be a distraction. And so I can come back with the softer brush. And I just picked a little bit of a darker color from his cheek. Having that shadow run up the fingers like that on that side of the fingers makes the hand look a little more bent, which is something I like. Makes it look more like he's in mid-action. And that's what you're trying to convey in comics. You're trying to create illustrations with dimension that occur in action. Even in these pages where not a whole lot happens, these talking head pages, you still want to make it look like the actors or the characters are caught mid-action, kind of like they are actors in a scene in a movie. Right? And I just took a snapshot of this figure in the middle of something. So a little bit of a yellower color here on the highlights for the hair. I'm using a firm brush again, and that's just I want to make sure that I leave enough of the red so that it still reads as being in that environment, but I want to get enough yellow in there so it looks like his hair is blonde and not the same color as this character. Right, now that same color that I used as a white, this will be the brightest color that I use here. So I'm just going to use this to paint some of the other stuff, some of the reflections. And I can still use some reds. I'm trying to keep the highlights on this glass to be consistent with the highlights that I've got on his face, whereas they're coming from the same direction, same side. Right, they're stronger on this side of the glass, and the highlights are stronger on that side of his face. And then I haven't made any cuts. There are no selections made, so I'm just going to keep on rendering stuff here, like this plate, which actually should be, because it's a different material than the glass, should have a different lighting condition, different highlights, or not a different lighting condition, but the highlights should be a little different, because the glass is transparent and it's picking up a lot of very pure white color. Now, the plate's white, but I don't want it to be whiter than the glass, because the glass, like metal, not that the glass is metal, because it's not, it's glass, but glass, like metal, tends to run all kinds of different values inside of the material. So I want to keep the stronger highlights on the glass. And then the table, there's a weird thing going on here with my flats. At the table, I want to leave kind of reddish, kind of orange. So I'm just going to paint in a little bit of a reddish orange light. Right, that's stronger on that one side than it is on the other. I'm going to pull some of that color into the bottom of the glass because I like it, and I think that serves it well. Alright, so that's my second panel. And the rest of the page won't take much time. I'll go with the same kind of techniques, same approach. I just want to lift that edge a little bit off her face. I could definitely go in more, but I don't want to overkill this scene. Neither of them are really on top of those candles in the way that these reference photos show these people are on top of these candles. You know, they're really, really close to those candles. Jean in this middle panel, she's leaning in a little bit, so I think she's closer to those candles than this character is. So that's it. I'm just going to leave it right around there because you get the point. Thank you for tuning in and sticking with me that long. No, I didn't do the whole page, but like I said, that's the basic general gist of it. And thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.